Thank you, Winnie, for the invite, and also Megan and Jose. I really thank you for this invitation. I want to say that my partner, Frank, he emailed that he has COVID, but I think he's doing well. He was vaccinated, so he couldn't make this introductory session that we're going to be having. But as you know, the cross-border training will be on December, I think it's tentatively December 14th. So I will be presenting quickly on my behalf and also on his behalf. I'll be presenting my section of it. And let me also say that this session is an introductory session on our masterclass, which is going to be on cross-border trade and also the AfCfTA for SME traders and business people. So bear with me, Mr. Frank Samolis will be here for the actual training, the masterclass. But I would, as I said, talk on his behalf. Well, Winnie, that's fine, right? If I present on, because remember he said he can't make it, but he should be fine by then because he was vaccinated. So keep him in your prayers. But I communicated with him today and he's doing well. Yes, and Megan, I see you're there too. Well done. You're doing very well with the Ozeapp and all. So quickly, let me jump in. We want you to salivate. So we're not going to give you the answers to all what we're going to do, because as Winnie rightfully said, this is an introductory session that we're doing here to what we're going to be doing on December 14th, Frank and I. Now, Winnie has introduced me. Frank, I'll give a quick introduction, even though he's not here. Can I do that quickly, just so they know? Yes, he is. I'm sorry?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. Frank Robert Samolis is co-chair, CEO, co-chair and partner of Squire Patton Boggs in Washington, D.C. And even though he works in other parts of the region, meaning India, China, Latin America, and also the US, he also works with me on Africa. He's on the board of ACDI, Afrocosmo Development Impact, LLC, Maryland, USA. So we work together. He's had I've had like close to more than 20 years experience, but he has had more than that, actually, more than 30 years experience in trade, investment, economic development. So basically, when he comes December 14th, he'll be giving more information. We'll give you more information on his background, but feel free to go look him up. Frank Robert Samolis is on LinkedIn. He's all over Google and everywhere. Let me jump in quickly to give you just an overview of what this is going to be. Like I said, we want you to salivate. It's like a movie, right? We want the suspense, so you get excited and you attend the event. So we're not going to give you everything. So basically, if you're an SME who's interested in cross-border trade or even inland, this will be a very, very exciting and very, very productive event for you. What we'll be looking at, what are the objectives of AfCfTA? AfCfTA came into force 2019, okay? Most of the countries, I understand this is going to be interactive. So how many of you are from West Africa, East Africa? I'm sure you all are, right? So you're all affected by this AfCfTA. Why should you come to this event? Why should you come to this training? Are you, like I said, are you an SME that's ambitious, that wants to be more productive, wants your business to thrive, wants to be more economically viable, wants to chime in and know more? Because intellectual knowledge is so critical to the process for a trader to be able to know where they're going to save money in terms of tariffs, for example. The provisions of the AfCfTA affect you because there's an inclusivity capacity building provision. And you can tap into grants, you can tap into loans, both nationally and also regionally, right? Also, there's the issue of formalization. Are you formalized? You want to formalize, right? Are you now, is your trade, are you involved in just inland trade? I'm going to leave it open for you to ask more questions about what you're going to get from this, right? From the training December 14, right? Beyond being inland, are you also cross-border? In other words, are you selling products to other African countries? Do you want to know what the implications are for you? Because in fact, 54 of the 55 African countries have signed the AfCfTA. It's a treaty, right? So it's binding on countries that have ratified. More than, in fact, close to 40 countries have ratified, right? Ratification means that now it's the law. They now have to go through, even countries, Ghana, Nigeria, as you know, the AfCfTA Secretariat is in Ghana currently. So countries that have ratified now have to domesticate it locally, right? Meaning that they have to now make it applicable within their own borders or boundaries, right? So you're affected because most of what's going on within that rubric affects you as a trader, because it's all about cross-border trade. The goal and aim of it is to promote cross-border trade within Africa, meaning SMEs that are in Ghana should be able to trade with easily, sell their products to South Africans, to traders, and to also Nigerian, with wherever you are in Africa, you're north, south, east, west. That's what it's all about. It's to promote trade, to facilitate intra-Africa trade in intra-Africa manufactured products, and also to promote SME manufacturing capacity, because we've had a lot of problems in Africa over so many years, colonization, where African nations relied on primary exportation of primary products, and they did not sort of strengthen their local manufacturing capacity. So if you're an SME, we work, for instance, our company, ACDI, we help SMEs in different sectors. We have clients in Africa. We also have in the diaspora too, within the agriculture sector. So if you're like a farmer, you're also affected by AfCfTA. If you're a retailer, in other words, we work from a cradle, what we call the cradle, meaning the farmer, to grave, which is the retailers. So if you're in the retail industry, you're selling products at your, in your store, you're affected. If you're in the textile industry, you're affected by AfCfTA. If you're in the tech industry, every industry is affected basically. So you want to sort of know everything about how you're going to benefit from this treaty, that all the countries in Africa, including mine, because I'm African too, even though I'm a US citizen, we're all affected by this. So how do the tariff rules affect you at customs? So assuming you're now trading across borders, you're not just inland. Even if you're inland, you're affected. I'll get to that later. How does it affect you? You want to know about that. Why should you care about it? Are you paying more than you should because you don't know what the rules of the game are? There's the rules of origin. You want to know, how do the rules of origin affect you? Is there any way that you shouldn't pay as much as you're paying now to export your goods? Also, there's what we call, excuse me, there's also what we call the Pan-African payment system. Very important, because you need to know about this. Because if you're paying to if you want to pay for a product, say you're in South Africa, or you're in DRC, or you're in Senegal, and you want, or wherever you are in West Africa, or wherever you are, and you want to purchase a product in another country, or you want to sell, this Pan-African payment system that was implemented, facilitated by Afrocosmo, the Africa Export-Import Bank, and also the AU, the AfCfTA Secretariat, which is of course tied in with the African Union. It's a system that actually facilitates the process of the transaction, so that if you're, in terms of the payment that you're using, the mode of payment, if you're using, the Nigerian Naira, and you don't have to sort of switch it, go to the bank to face a lot of bureaucratic hurdles, sort of trying to transmit the money into Rand. You can do it in Naira and send it to them. So that facilitates the process, right? It's a payment system that's so welcoming, so good, and helps to, enable SMEs to be able to transact their business within a short space of time. In the past, it took longer to do that when it was transborder. There's also the Mansa digital system that will enable you, although this one, you have to be cautious about this because there's a subscription to this, but if you attend the training on December 14 that we're having will give you more detailed information about what's in it for you, because it's a system that will be so beneficial to you as an SME trader. Now, there's also the beyond the rubric of the AfCfTA, there is possibilities for you as an SME to also trade beyond the borders of Africa. Even though if you trade within the borders of Africa, which is the goal, you don't have tariffs, all those extra tariffs that will be imposed on you if the product is intra-Africa manufactured product, right? In other words, the input into that product was all African-based. That's when you get those duties, or you won't have any duties or tariffs imposed on your good. That's within the rubric of rules of origin. There's also the possibility that you can export. You can capitalize on AGOA. AGOA is the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act within the US, which allows even AfCfTA, companies that are in AfCfTA countries can actually export and import from the US under the AGOA eligibility requirements. That's another angle which Frank, my partner, will be covering. Very important, because AGOA is going to be renewed 2025. Why do I bring it within the rubric of AfCfTA? Because AfCfTA countries are actually eligible to AGOA, and there's a link, and we're going to talk about that during Q&A. Okay, so basically I want to open it up to interactions with you at this stage. So does anybody have any questions? How many of you are inland and how many of you are transborder? I'm curious. Anybody there, or are you all shy? How many people are here? Let's see, there are 27. Do you have any questions for me? Are you inland? Are you trading? How many of you how many hands are up for people who trade? Oh, inland. Okay, I see somebody inland. Okay, Andrew, you're inland. So I'm wondering, Andrew, as an inland SME, are you formalized? In other words, your business, what's your sector?
Okay, so I've been involved in the agri sector in various products, but currently not operating. So I do facilitation between SMEs and companies that need commodities to produce. So currently that's what I do. So
okay.
Mainly agribusiness, if I put it that way. Yeah.
Okay, and you do facilitation in terms of logistics?
Yes, some logistics, and mainly market access for small farmers to the producing or the manufacturing companies. That's what I do. Yeah.
Okay, you provide so in other words, the supply chain. Broker. I'm sorry, commodity
brokering.
Okay, brokerage.
Grains.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. So you link them, in other words, in the supply chain from cradle to grave, you bring the linkages together. So that's very critical, because the implications for AfCfTA, right? And most of the grains you're dealing with are local. Are they?
Hello?
Are they local?
Yeah, they are local.
Okay. So this is going to be important for you in terms of and you purchase. Do you link? I'm sorry.
So they are local, but there's a possibility that some of them might come from Burkina Faso.
Okay. To Burkina Faso to Ghana.
Yes.
Okay. So the issue there for you will be knowing what the rules of origin are between Burkina Faso and Ghana if you're bringing in. But the good news is that the parties to AfCfTA, so in terms of the duty-free, in terms of rules of origin. And some countries also have it where instead of them having tariff rules per country, they're doing it like ECOWAS. Some countries have joined the regional blocks, what they call the RECs, regional economic, excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah, so they're doing it so that they don't have to deal with the bottleneck of having to define national rules of origin. Rules of origin, for those of you who are not aware, I'm giving you a little tip here, but you're going to get more when we have our meeting, the training, the masterclass later. But it has to do with detecting where did this, like for instance now, Andrew, your product, it's about knowing, okay, if you purchased it from Burkina Faso and it's coming into Ghana, and then the farmer, assuming that you connect the farmers, they use the grain to produce, let's say they produce a finished product, right? It goes beyond just primary products. I don't know, what grains do you deal with? Corn or whatever, maybe they make corned beef. I don't know, what are the grains you're dealing with in the farming industry? I don't know, whatever it is. What are the grains?
Maize and sorghum.
Okay, maize, okay. Maize can be turned into powder and sold in the store. You know, it can be processed. In other words, from the primary products, it becomes an agribusiness where there's technology involved to then sell it in the stores, right? I'm just giving that as an example. The question becomes, okay, because Burkina Faso and Ghana are party to AfCfTA, are they within the, are they operating within the rules of origin of ECOWAS? Because, you know, it's West Africa, right? Which is part of ECOWAS. In which case, if they are, what are the rules in terms of you not paying, or your clients, right? Not paying, if they now, the person in Ghana decides to now turn it into a finished product and then sell it to say South Africa, sell the product, will they be charged duties? Or will it be a duty-free when they're exporting through the customs, right? Because it's locally made within the region of Africa, yes, but you will need to look at the specifics as to Burkina Faso, Ghana, are they within ECOWAS? All those questions come into play, but that's why it's so critical to know what the rules are and how it applies, because there's corruption linked to this where some customs officers are not telling you what your rights are. You see what I mean? So some people that are not aware are paying tariffs and taxes when they shouldn't be, right? Because they say knowledge is power, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yes,
and we'll be talking, and even the Mansa Digital, I will give you some information because I work with Africsm, some people within Africsm, right? And the Mansa Digital is also critical because sometimes it's good to have access to a database that gives you, in terms of due diligence, who am I dealing with, right? So that digital system has information for traders on what they're dealing with in terms of cross-border. There's going to be a lot of cross-border because we're talking about 2-point-something million. How many of us? Billion people, over 2 billion, right? In Africa. That's what this is promoting a lot. Close to $3 trillion worth of GDP. It's a lot, right? That's what they're trying to, this is what AfCfTA is about. It's about regional trade, right? But at the grassroots level, it affects every single SME. It's not going to be business as usual anymore.
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so assuming a food processor buys maize or the agro components and imports the packaging from Europe or China and exports the finished product to, let's say, South Africa or another country, will the packaging be treated as something that's not coming from Africa, so that will attract some kind of duty separate from the component that was processed within Africa?
Very smart question. because that packaging that was used, because you don't forget the packaging too has to do with manufacturing. It's that product, the packaging that was used was manufactured elsewhere. That's why it's taken a long time to do rules of origin, because every nitty-gritty part of every single product is separated, rules of origin for everything, every input, because it's part of the input of that product that's been sent. Because that packaging that you got from China may have saved you money or maybe cost you more. It's part of that input for that product. So yes, you will have to pay that part of it, right? So because it's part of the whole deal, right? Because if you say save money because China has cheaper labor, right? And you went elsewhere, then that will be included, will be factored in, because what they're trying to do is to encourage African nations to trade in African manufactured products, regardless of what it is. However, you can still do that. The only thing is you're going to be taxed more. You will not have that part of it will have to be taken off what you will benefit from. In other words, you know what I mean? There's no, the same with AGOA. You can continue to, because in terms of, there's the provision, Article, Part 4, Article 18.2 of AfCfTA, Part 2, Article 4.2, Trade in Goods Protocol, Article 4, Part 4, Article 4.2 of AfCfTA, Trade in Services Protocol. They all allow AfCfTA member nations, companies in those places to actually do, trade. In other words, they're allowed to give preferential or good treatment to other countries in terms of duties, as long as that treatment you give, say with the product you said, packaging, when you're importing, you can't give China that packaging a better treatment than Africa, any African product that is being manufactured, meaning the packaging that you got from China. Say if you said it was imported into Ghana, right? The person who did the agribusiness, we're just giving hypotheticals, So the government of Ghana, right, when that packaging was brought in from China, the question really is, did the government of Ghana give a better treatment for that packaging than they would give to a local packaging manufacturing industry in Ghana or anywhere in Africa? If they can't, they can import that packaging, plastic or whatever it was they used, into Ghana and then, through customs, but the duties and the tariffs they impose on that product cannot be better than what they will give to another packaging industry that says, hey, we want to also bring in our packaging from Algeria or Morocco or South Africa or wherever in Africa, a member of the AfCfTA. They cannot do better. You know what I mean? Because remember, the rules of the game are defined on the national level in every country. So that's where the key is. You see, it's competition. That what it is African countries are supposed to give better benefits. Like say you now want to export, you're supposed to have very little duties or no duties at all. But if it's coming from outside Africa, then they're supposed to impose a higher duty. If you give a better treatment to, say, a Chinese company bringing in a product, you better know that that treatment you gave, say it was $10, I'm just giving an example, $10 per ton of a product or whatever they're bringing in, you better make sure, and you imposed only maybe 2% tax on it, you better make sure that you don't impose anything. You either impose 1% or nothing more than 2%. It has to be better than what you impose. The tariffs on that packaging has to be much better for a fellow African country than you did for the Chinese company that imported it. Does that make sense? So they're not forbidding, they're not preventing African nations from trans-border trade with foreign countries. But what they're doing is making sure that you give a better treatment to a fellow African nation company than you do to any other non-African. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And another thing they're working on now is the airwaves, because sometimes, and as you know, if you travel a lot, you know it's more difficult to go to a fellow African country via plane than to go to a foreign country, than to go to London. So they're working on that space currently. This is the latest information on AfCfTA. A lot is happening. It's a very exciting time. And for you being inland, you may want to explore the possibility of expanding and capitalizing on all the benefits now that AfCfTA has to offer. But we'll be discussing a lot of that in our meeting December 14. We'll be giving you more detailed information about that. And well done for your business. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I see that many of you here. Does anybody have any questions for me? Don't be shy.
Well, please, for some of us that might not know about the AfCfTA, I don't know if you could just give like a brief introductory description of what it is for those who might not know.
Okay. Yes. To add to a little bit, I think I said the aims, but I'll add a little bit more to it. You're absolutely right, Winnie. The AfCfTA, like I said, came into force 2019. It's the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. 54 of the 55 African countries have signed. Only Eritrea has not signed it yet. Now, close to 40 have ratified. Okay. Most West African countries have, signed and ratified. What does that mean? That means that it's going to be law. What's left now is for them to domesticate it within their borders, meaning implementation. They talk with their lawmakers. They've already started the implementation process. In fact, it's now been operationalized. Ghana has started trading. So some countries have already started. Rwanda, some countries are trading already. So, so you're lucky that, I'm talking now to the SMEs, that you're hearing this, because, they say sometimes the train leaves the train station and some people were left behind. You don't want to be left behind, because that's why you should be at this event. And, grateful that Ozeapp and ACDI, my company, are having this, because this is so important for you to be able to save money. Because, the worst part of the situation is that when customs, because that's where, even if you're inland, you're affected because you're part of the supply chain, right? So you need to know, because your bargaining chip for you as a trader will be to know, how does it affect me? There's an inclusivity provision, inclusivity and capacity building provision, which I mentioned earlier. In fact, about three provisions of the AfCfTA talk about how SMEs, female youth-owned SMEs should be given capacity, and all SMEs should be, there's need to strengthen manufacturing capacity. There's need to strengthen access to capital. It's all written in there, right? The question is, where are you going to go to get all this stuff that's there? There's also the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat. The head of the Secretariat, who heads this, we actually hosted him, ACDI, my company, and Frank's company. We hosted him March of this year in Washington, DC. His name is His Excellency Secretary General Wamkele Mene, who is from South Africa, right? And he answers to the Council of Ministers and Heads of State of Africa. It's very important. His role is extremely important. He used to be a trade negotiator. He's very much into you all and me, all the SMEs. Also includes the diaspora. That's why I said me, because even though I don't live in Africa, I'm part of the African diaspora. I'm working from an advisory transactions capacity building standpoint, but this is part of what we do. We discussed at the meeting with him, which we're going to be having another one, the inclusivity capacity building component, and he agrees it's one of the most important components of the AfCfTA. Very important, because it's good to include everybody, especially at the grassroots, small, medium enterprises, you all, especially those in Africa that I'm talking with, you comprise close to 80% of the workforce, 80%. And of that 80%, 50% are in the services industry, right? Now, the AfCfTA has a trade in goods. I mentioned it earlier, trade in services protocol. There's also trade in goods protocol. These protocols are very critical because it's not only about movement of goods, it's also about movement of services. So that's why, you know, I was asking my brother, I think Andrew, was it Andrew I was speaking with earlier, if he was inland or if he was cross-border, because you know that when the borders open, like right now, they're thinking about operationalizing. In fact, there are talks about visa, you know, people talked about xenophobia in South Africa, wherever, you know, what happened a couple of years ago. But there's talks now about opening up the borders for Africans to be able to travel across. You know how it was with EU, the European Union, to do that within Africa. But right now, where it is that there's services whereby they're going to provide opportunities for traders and business people to cross borders easily without looking for visas. So they want to facilitate not only free movement of goods through duty-free services or duty-free provisions within AfCfTA, whereby they say you don't have to pay or you pay very low duties, in other words, in terms of tariffs, but they're also trying to facilitate movement of peoples. So there's been debates within the AU, member nations as to, okay, should we now provide a special visa where everybody can now come into wherever they want without getting a visa, or should it be specific to, if you're a trader and you want to sell your products and you want to travel to another country within Africa, then you're going to be able to go freely without having to have any bottlenecks, right? We already have the regional visa, that's ECOWAS visa that people use in West Africa, and also you have COMESA, you have different kind of visas elsewhere, but this is regional. This is now the whole of Africa we're talking about, right? So, so that's basically the sections that affect you. There's also, they've done in terms of rules of origin, most countries have already defined on a case-by-case basis. What they're doing is going to define what the rules of the game are for the products you're bringing in, that everybody is bringing into their country. They're saying, okay, we're going to not allow you, we're going to exempt you from paying tariffs. Maybe you pay 1% tariff instead of, or 0% or 0.1% tariff on corn or on sugar. What they're doing is they're comparing it with their own products because they don't want you to dump all your products in their country. I'm talking now within Africa. So every country did their rules of origin. Some are still in the process of finishing up. I think most of the countries have done it because this started since 2019, right? COVID slowed down issues, in terms of facilitating the process, right? It slowed it down, COVID 2020. So it became operational, AfCfTA, in January of 2021 was when it became operational, right? It was delayed a bit after it came into force, because when a treaty comes into force, it doesn't just start, people don't start implementing it immediately. It takes time for it to then become operational. So it was spring of 2021 that it became operational. But trading did not start amongst some countries until just this year. A few countries have started trading. We'll give you more information on that. If I give you everything, then you're not going to come December 14th. So I'm not going to tell you everything because we have a lot to discuss. And one of the things we'll be also telling you December 14 is also about what the implications are for you, not just if you're inland, but also if you want to, and if you want to do regional, but also if you want to even go elsewhere to, say, the US, to access markets. Because what we have found in our company is that 3 issues that SMEs face: access to capital, access to markets, and access to, and of course, Ozeapp is doing an awesome job with the finance side of things. So I'm pleased that you're all tied in with Ozeapp. There's nothing better than Ozeapp there in Africa, I can tell you that. I'm not saying because I partner with them, but they are really good. They have insights on a lot of things that you need and you want and you demand, and that will help you in terms of scaling up and all. And the third is access to business, trade, legal knowledge, which we provide, that cuts across all these other areas that we talked about, but finance, which is so critical, and the markets, you know, because you can have access to market, but if you don't have the funding, or if you don't have the knowledge, forget about it. And within the knowledge, it has to also do with other issues of scaling up. What are the different ways in which you can create an enabling environment for yourself, not just wait for the government to do it, because the government can do it for you, but there are things you can do to ameliorate your costs. So knowing what the AfCfTA provides and the big picture for you will enable you to save some money and say, hey, wait a minute. And when you know, they will not cheat you at the borders, because you can put some more money in your pockets and say, hey, and when you know where to go to get the funding, to get the help you need, you know, and you know what your rights are, then you can be not so much demand it, but you can ask for it. You know.
Okay, please, we have a question from Gideon, and I believe Tansy also had a question. So Gideon, please go ahead, and then Tansy will go right after.
Hello. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. And
okay, I'm not seeing Tansy. Okay, Tansy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please, Gideon, please go ahead.
Yes, Tansy, who's talking?
Gideon is speaking now.
Oh, Gideon. Okay, Gideon.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Gideon, please, if that before you ask everybody, please introduce your business, your trade, please. That will help me a little. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Gideon. I'm a master graduate, and I am now trying to set up a business, but I am faced with a lot of challenges, especially financial aspects. I was researching how I can get a license into the free zones system. And I realized application fee was $100, $3,000 for manufacturing, $4,000 for service, and $10,000 USD for commercial, or its equivalent in Ghana cedi, with a yearly renewal fee of $2,500. And I understand this is to make way for Africans to be able to trade among ourselves, but the cost involved is not going to make it possible for the youths and the masses of the graduate unemployed people in Africa to be able to enter into entrepreneurship and trade. Want to know if there are any organizations who are providing startups, the graduates who want to start their own businesses with some startup funds who can support the teeming unemployed graduates who want to enter into entrepreneurship and trade among African countries and possibly other European and the US markets. And so this is my question, because the cost involved and the bureaucratic procedures is too much. I see you have to get a memorandum of understanding with a partner, and all these things is not so simple as we are saying. So we want to know, I want to know, my friends want to know if there are any supports in terms of financing startups when they bring their business plan, if there are any organizations to support this teeming youths of graduate unemployed to be able to transact business between the African countries and possibly the other developed countries. Because I understand in economics, it is exportation of products that will help you to earn more foreign exchange into your country for you to develop your country. And basically all African countries are relying on importation of products from China all the time. And so if we want to help ourselves and the teeming youth unemployed, this cost, we have to have a second thought about it and talk to the institutions who are putting this cost as a major barrier. And there is no way the youth who have graduated and not having any chance to be employed in the government sector will be able to raise funds to do this. And this is a major concern, and it's a security threat, because the unemployment issue is a security threat. And so those in authority, those of you who have access to them, need to talk to them to have a second thought about all this. So my main question is, I want to know if there are some institutions who can provide startup funds, then we can communicate to the youth who have their business plans ready to apply. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, and I hope to get an answer from you.
Yes. Yeah, Gideon, thank you for this question you have. And let me first, before I answer, the free economic zones that you're talking about, because every country has theirs. Where is yours located? Are you in Ghana? Is that the free economic zone in Ghana?
I'm in Ghana. I'm reading from the website. I'm reading from their website.
Okay.
What
So
I
yours,
saying.
because every state, every African state or African country has their free economic zones with their different policies. So it's good to know. Yeah. So you're in Ghana. Good. And the fact that it's really high, you know, I'm glad you raised that question, because one of the things that we've been talking about, and yes, we have, to answer your question about whether or not there are institutions that support startups, yes, there are. And one of the things we will do when we present December, I promise you, I will try and get as many in terms of the list. We actually, this is some of the things that we do. My company, we try to, we're now doing something in the creative industry to provide access. It's not easy, believe it or not. And maybe we could share with you the event we had with His Excellency here at the AU mission. My company, ACDI, hosted with Frank Squire. He's on my board, so we did it together. Mr. Samolis, you see him if you come on December 14th. And this was a big issue. This question was a big issue, with this question of capacity, financial capacity, not just access to knowledge, but also this issue. But let me say, yes, there are startups, and they're not only, let me even throw out, for instance, Tony Elumelu Foundation. He does, they provide, support to SMEs, and I'm a coach on the Tony Elumelu Fund. I'm one of the coaches there. But the requirements, they give sometimes 5,000, they give grant seed money. There's also the seed, anyway, I won't give you all of it, but because I want you to come December 14th. But yes, there's a list. The question for me, for you, it will be having to access. You're in good company with Ozeapp and with us, with ACDI. So having to be able to, access the support you need to then because it takes work to be able to prepare the document itself to satisfy what they're looking for. You know what I mean? Because sometimes if you're a startup, of course, California has a lot of, angel investors that help out. But sometimes it's almost like a catch-22. They want you to show, some kind of proof that you have ability to succeed before they want to help you, right? So if you're talking about foreign help in terms of angel investors, local, there is within Africa, some of the, like I mentioned, Tony Elumelu's foundation, they do that. But I totally agree with you in terms of the special economic zones. It's not that easy. It's a catch-22. They're trying to promote youth-owned SMEs or just SMEs, female-owned or whatever. But at the same time, they're telling them, okay, we want you to be economically sustainable, but then they're charging you money to start your business. And believe it or not, some of my clients that I have, not to mention the names, but for instance, I have a farmer, in West Africa that I, not only her, I have a couple of fish and a strawberry. I sent them about 6 months ago, I sent them a grant, a form that, you know, the US Development Foundation, US Africa Development Foundation, whom I know the head of it, the president, when he advertised on LinkedIn, I sent it to them to apply for the grant loan, but they couldn't even qualify because the definition of SME in Africa is not the same with the definition. And I raised this with His Excellency. I can send to Ozeapp the YouTube so you all can watch it before we have our meeting, December 14, with the training. So, you know, I'll ask you some questions, yeah? But it's sort of background information. For instance, the definition is in the OECD, in Paris, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, and here even in the US, the bar is high for what they consider SME. It's much higher. Most SMEs in Africa don't even qualify. So I'm with you, because there's a lot of talk about helping SMEs. I'm not saying they're not into it, but that's why what Ozeapp is doing is exceptional, because Ozeapp is capturing the majority, and my company capturing the majority of SMEs that people go around, all the institutions are talking about that. Oh yes, 80%, SMEs hire more than 80%, but high unemployment is there. And if we're trying to capture and create wealth in Africa, you're the ones that we're supposed to be tapping into. And that's where Ozeapp is so critical to the process, because they are what I call the survivalist SMEs, because we have in our company survivalists and opportunists. Survivalists, opportunist ones are the ones in Wall Street and having access to everything. Not that there's anything wrong with that. We have some clients who are opportunists, but the youth, those who are starting up their businesses, it's like a catch-22. Oh, we want you to succeed, but you need to pay us money before we make you so. It's very, very hard. So yes, there are people who, you know, angel investors, there are foundations that provide support to startups. But I want to caution, because there are all types of support. And I get a lot of requests, actually, even as somebody that they know works in this area of trade investment. Oh, we can help your clients. Hey, we will give them, we promise to give them how many, 2-3% loan. But you know, there are loan sharks out there. So when you talk about support, are you willing to have loans, or are you thinking equity, or are you thinking grants? Because there are all kinds of startup supports. You understand what I mean? So Gideon, are you open to loans? Are you open to grants? Are you open to equity? What is it you're looking for? Because the financing mechanisms that are most available out there, unfortunately or fortunately, are mostly loans. And so you want to read between the lines. You want to get Ozeapp involved so that they can help you look through and say, hey, there's a catch. Because even if they give me 1% for the first month, they might increase. I've had a client that I helped from the legalist, I work on the legalistic policy side, right? But we look at these terms and conditions. And when you look, sometimes they're hidden terms that will make you almost trapped, right? They sometimes need collateral. That's another thing with my clients, what I talked about earlier. They give you loans, they give you grants, but to qualify, you have to have collateral. Some of them require, like the Stanford Seed, $250,000 collateral. So if you're in Africa, can you imagine with the exchange rate and inflation, for you to be able to be valued at $250,000 and a business owner? Some of my clients say, hey, Prof, I'm only worth about $90,000. We advised the client to merge with her mother's farm so that she could then qualify for a loan. She was so excited. She says, oh, because I worked in mergers acquisition. So we worked with, and I'm an African attorney in addition to being an American, a US attorney, so that she could qualify, because she's like, oh, so excited about the loan and the grant, because they gave loan and grant. But the requirement was, hey, we want to make sure you have collateral to support any kind of equity financing we want to do with you. So bear in mind that even as a startup, if you want to do a startup, you want to have collateral that will be able to enable them to trust, because it's a risk. There's no Santa Claus, my dear people. There's no Santa Claus anywhere. In other words, everybody who's trying to help you wants to see that even though they're taking that risk, there's something they're going to get back. Does that make sense, Gideon? Does that make sense? Is he on mute? Gideon, are you there?
Yeah, you are right. You are right. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, I'm
sorry?
here. I can hear you.
Okay, I didn't hear you for a while, so I didn't know if you were muted.
No, I was listening.
Yes, so seriously, they don't do, so be it for startups, like if you're looking locally at an African, within Ghana for the, to get help and all, yeah, they're angel investors that do that. But they're also, you said you're open to loans, right? Gideon.
Hello.
You're open to loans, the form of financing. You're open to having lenders.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yes. So you want to watch the interest rate, the rate at which they're lending you to. So you will need Ozeapp to help you to, there are a lot of, you know what I mean? Because you have to read between the lines to see what's the catch. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because sometimes they give you low, but then after like 2-3 years, it goes higher. The premium, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the rates.
Or if you default, they could attach, and then you. Yes. But I'm with you on the special economic zones, but it's a very complicated process with special economic zones, but we can discuss a little bit more December 14.
All right.
Thank you, Gideon.
But we will definitely give you a list. Well, not definitely. We will give you at least a few names here and there. I'll compile a little and share with the group about possible places where you can go. But let me urge that you will want Ozeapp to help you. Ozeapp, I'm sure, has a list of that. Yes, because they're very good at it. You can't, we can help you on the terms, conditions from the legalistic policy side, but they know a lot. I can tell you that.
All right, thank you.
But we're here to help you. Yeah.
Thank you, Gideon. I don't know if you can see the chat. If you're interested in the upcoming masterclass, I've shared a link for you to answer an assessment questionnaire form. So please kindly fill that if you're interested, and Val and her team will definitely, you're in good hands with Val and her team, too much. Val, I think we'll take the last question. Anne's hand has been up for like a long time, so I'm sorry about that. If you can kindly ask the question.
Before she chimes in, let me add to what Winnie said, please. The questionnaire is only, Winnie, how many questions? 15 or 10 or something?
I think there are 15, 20, yes, please. Please,
those questions that we sent, right, very important, because that will help us. The training we do is interactive, experiential, similar to what we're doing now with Gideon. It's interactive, it's experiential, it's organic. It's called street law policy style training. The client I had who was a farmer that I helped to merge, I worked with a local farmer, even though I'm a local attorney, but I in Africa, I'm also a US attorney. We helped work together to help her merge, because sometimes the solution to financial problems are from a bank. There are many avenues to building yourself, and you could mergers, acquisitions. You could be bought up by another company if you're facing trouble. If you're trying to establish a company, and Gideon, we will give you some tips, because the only way out for you, Gideon, is not necessarily to go and establish a new company. There are other avenues for you to generate. So there are many ways in which we do this. So please fill out the form, because the questions we have will enable us to help you to help yourself, because we will get answers to the demographics of who we're going to be serving and training in the masterclass on December, I believe it's December 14 that we're doing it. So when you fill out, it's tailored to, we ask simple questions like, they're very easy. Are you formalized? Are you inland? How big is your business? And, what are the challenges you're facing? Are you getting funding from external sources? Do you need funding? Those are that will help us know how to help you. And when we get it, we'll look at it within a week before the training, so we can then answer every question that everybody will possibly have. Does that make sense? Yeah. So please let me, Anne, you said? Anne.
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
All right. Thank you, Professor, for the opportunity. I actually have two questions. So the first one has to do with...
Oh, Anne, please introduce yourself first.
Oh, sorry. My name is Anne Alphonsus. I'm into education, the educational sector. Please, what else am I supposed to talk about aside the industry?
No, that's fine. You're an educationist, you said.
Yes, I'm an educationist. So I want to find out, I have two questions. The first one is, I filled the form that the Ozeapp Madam was just talking about, and there's an aspect of it that spoke about trademarks and all of that. And I knew that's something very important, especially when you have an idea that you think could make sense. But I just want to find out, does it make sense to go ahead to trademark your work even before you've gone into the market, or you have to go test the market, or maybe start your business, start doing whatever you have to do, and then later you try to trademark you try to trademark the concept? There's a term that was used on the form. I have to look at it again. That's actually the term I'm trying to use, but maybe hopefully you understand what I'm talking about.
Is it intellectual property? Intellectual property.
No, it's not necessarily an intellectual property. So it's
copyright.
more like,
it depends on your business.
yes, it's more like a model. It's a model that I'm trying, that is a bit unique from what is out there, and I'm trying to see if, before every other person rushes on it, you would want to see if there is a way it could be protected. It's not an intellectual property. Okay, so I'm just wondering, is it advisable to first go into the market and start selling your product and selling whatever you have, or it's best you just go and do the trademarking first, and then later you can worry about later you go to market, or you can go to market and later you worry about trademarking? That's the first question. The second question has to do with cross-border trade. So I'm just wondering, if someone is doing, let's say, maybe an online, you are doing an online tutoring program, and people across the world are coming in to register for your course or something, do you need any of are there cross-border limitations or inhibitions that could stop you from accessing the markets across the globe? That's my second question.
That's a second one. You said if you're doing online training and people...
let's say you are selling a course online.
Okay.
You are selling something, you're selling a course online that people can actually access without you necessarily being there. I mean, it's a site that you can coordinate your business and everything you do across the border without you necessarily being there. Do you really need any form of, are there regulatory bodies to kind of regulate how you access these markets across the globe?
What do you mean access? Is it access or access? Access. What do you mean the way you access it?
I mean, that's to be able to
access it.
Yes.
Be
able to.
So if somebody is doing online training, are there rules on people being able to access that training to benefit from it?
Exactly. Yes. Are there cross-border rules? Like maybe you have to do something to let's say maybe the United States have a rule that before you can teach people within the United States, you have to do A, B, and C. Or Ukraine has a rule that before someone in Ukraine, you can teach someone in Ukraine, you have to do A, B, C, and D. I just want to know because of course also here we see a lot of online programs coming on our Facebook pages, and people can just subscribe online and all of that. But I'm just wondering, are there protocols that must be followed, like national and national protocol or regulatory protocol that you have to follow, or you can just go ahead and sell your things to people across the border and nothing happens to you?
Oh, okay, good questions. Let me handle the second one first. On cross-border, because we have now basically one world, the question for me when you say cross-border, it depends on what you're selling, the content you're selling, right? And secondly, because the internet now, is somewhat, I don't want to say it's not regulated. It's regulated to a certain extent. There's certain things that you're not allowed to do. But if you have an online training, and if you're sort of, it depends on the product itself. It's a very vague question. I mean, are you, is it an illegal thing that's banned in the country that you're trying to, like if it's, free speech, it depends. Some countries will not let you sell, train people in something that violates their culture. Or if it's, I don't know, where you're heading with that.
Okay.
I'm not very clear. But if it's a matter of, let me also, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I wanted to maybe expatiate a little bit, but it's fine.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I said I wanted to just throw in more light, for more further clarity, but I think it's fine since you're not done yet.
Oh, no, if you want to say something, that's fine.
Okay, so I was trying to say that, let's say, for example, we are doing we are selling on videos, okay, academic videos based on the approved national curriculum. Let's say maybe I'm here let's say I'm here in Ghana, but we have videos that are based on the Nigerian curriculum, for example, and we want to sell it to the Nigerian market. Okay. I mean, it's based on their approved, is it NAPCO? There's something they call it, for example, just example. So something like that, it's legal. There are, maybe a set of videos and all of that. Do I need, any form of, is there anything that can ban me, for example, from accessing the Nigerian market, in terms of regulatory framework?
Okay, and you're in Ghana trying to sell to Nigeria, or Nigeria is trying to sell to you? The person is in Ghana.
I'm in Ghana trying to sell to Nigeria and some other African countries.
And is there something in Nigeria that will prevent you from being able to access what the Ghanaian is selling?
Exactly. Whether there are regulatory from the
yes. So basically, there's a loaded question, because first, if there's copyright issues, right? That's where the IP issue is linked to this. If you if I am a Ghanaian person in terms of education, the product has it's a curriculum, educational curriculum, and I want to now train people all over the world and including Nigeria. The issue of copyright arises because that's my product, which is in my domain that I have registered in Ghana. Hopefully I did, which ties in with your question about trademark. I would not use even the word trademark per se, because in the realm of IP, intellectual property, there's copyright, there's trade secret, trademark is, and there's patent.
Trade secret, that's the word I'm looking for.
Oh, the trade secret is the
word I'm looking for, yes.
Okay, trade secret is in the realm of food, like the mama puts in the street. Some of them I've talked to, I've advised them. When okay, let me first do that second one, and then I'll tie it into the first because they're somewhat linked. Copyright is like creative industry or writings. I publish a lot, so it's copyrighted stuff. You don't want somebody to steal your knowledge because knowledge is power. Knowledge is valuable, right? So yes, so when somebody is doing that, academic, it depends. Like this forum we're in right now is not an academic forum, it's a practical where it's sharing practical and substantive knowledge, right? And we are qualified to do it. I'm an African trained attorney, I'm a US trained attorney, where it's loaded in policy stuff. Frank is a guru, he's known all over, you know, I mean, he's very, you know, he's the chair and co-trade he's the co-chair and partner of trade in Squire Patton Boggs, which is like one of the top 10 law firms in the world, right? And he's worked forever. We advise high-level people and grassroots people. So even what we're doing in this forum, for instance, you know, we haven't sort of gone and protected it or whatever, or saying but it's somewhat protected because it's based on stuff we've written. We've published a lot in this field. So, and there's no boundaries to sharing knowledge. That's the whatever of freedom of expression, First Amendment, right? It's not just unique to the US, but it's all over. But the question really that you're raising is whether or not anybody can access, as long as they have, sometimes when it's an academic format, which is like a curriculum, you can't just go and then take it and resell without the permission of the person, assuming it's a formalized training, okay? Even if it's practical, like things that we're doing right now, there's nothing illegal about selling your, you know, information and practical training because we're qualified to do it, right? But the issue you're raising, which is within the context of maybe education or whatever it is, if somebody uproots, like for instance, if the person has written stuff where they then post, then you take it in verbatim and go and resell. In other words, we post the text of a document and we put our name on it, and you switch and put your name. That's when it's copyright infringement, if you know what I mean. Unless you take it and say, hey, I'm quoting Dr. Val, you know what I mean? So that's where it becomes dicey. Okay, so likewise with that curriculum, the person in Nigeria cannot go and uproot the whole thing you did and put their name on it. They will have to say, hey, it was Anne, this quoting Anne. Even me as a professor, I've taught forever, I taught online. I taught online to students who were in China, who were all over, because, you know, Catholic University, we go global programs. When I was at University of, you know, GW, the online blackboard, sometimes they're based everywhere. But even we professors, when we use textbooks, we can't just uproot the whole textbook and put it in the system, because that's stealing somebody's, you know what I mean? That's an infringement on the copyright. We have to then take permission to say, okay, a few pages, or even things we've published, you can put in a few pages here and there, but quote the person appropriately, you know. But so there are copyright issues, but then there's also the question, if you're teaching other people and they want to access it, do they have a right to? What are the rules of the game within their country? If it's something you're teaching that's probably against their culture or whatever, then even you might be, you know, will need to be more cautious. There's some countries where you can't be teaching about gender rights very easily, you know, because they have issues about the parameters or scope within which a woman should be allowed to do certain things. So when you teach it carefully, if you know what I mean. You have to be more sensitive to do, you know, and so they may not be allowed to participate in your training, right? Because you're teaching about, okay, hey, is your husband doing this? Hey, leave him, you know, file divorce. Hey, you have a right to, you know what I mean? You want to tailor it. So you have to be culturally sensitive, so to speak, depending on where you're teaching the stuff, you know, because even within the rubric of AfCfTA, we also teach about domestic violence, because people who are traders who cross borders have issues with, you know, and also sexual harassment with being raped in some parts of the world. You know, sex traders, they're being assumed to be sex traders, the truckers are grabbing them. So some of our clients that we do strict law policy, we weave in domestic violence and sexual harassment issues, because women who are traders in the streets, especially informal traders, have issues that tie in, that might be sensitive in some cultures. Am I making sense?
Yes, please.
Yes, exactly. So, and on the first one, no, do that first. I would not recommend you, because the whole point of IP as I said, the IP has different flavors. There's the trade secret, there's the, when you come, we'll tell you all that. But what you do is you register first. Because if you don't register, somebody can steal your knowledge. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's not the only reason. What do you think is the second reason? Guess. I'm not going to say you're not smart. Just throw it out because you're a businesswoman. What do you think is the second reason why it's important to register your, depends on what the nature of business is. Because like I said, if it's food supply chain, it's a trade secret. Yeah. If it's creative industry, crafts, or you're writing stuff, it's copyright. If it's technology linked to that, it's patent. Does that make sense? And they're all trademarked. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So why do you think it's also important to do it? Why is it important to do it? Especially if it's something that's unique that you offer. Food doesn't taste the same. Even people who cook, they don't, you know that. Some of those people, you taste jollof rice here, you taste jollof rice, they're all different. Teresa Hines, who is the wife of John Kerry, who heads the climate change fund, guess what she did? She registered trade secret of jollof. She sells it at the stores here. Very expensive, but very yummy. She capitalized on Africa, and she's originally from Mozambique, but she was smart. She knew that Africans love jollof rice. We compete with each other over the best jollof rice. And she puts it in, and now Africans are capitalizing on that. I have a client who just did with powdered, spices, mixed in with, soup, soup, but it's the spicy soup. Him and his wife just did that. Just recently, Africans are now doing it and selling in stores. Because it's not perishable when it's dry. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. Teresa Hines is now making money. Heinz tomato ketchup. You all know Heinz, right? Heinz. Yeah. Does Ghana and Nigeria? Yeah, West Africa carries it. She's the heir to the. She's the heir. Heinz. HEIZ or something. She has jollof. And Africans, if you Google it, they were mad at her. I'm like, why are we mad at her? The woman is smart. She went and registered it, and now it's hers. Why do you think it's important to do it? Why? Tell me. What do you think?
Well, yeah, first, of course.
What does it do to your product?
Well, one, it makes it yours. Okay, so it's also kind of worse of competitors, especially in the early parts of your business. So it kind of protects you, because when people.
And what does that do to you as a person? And the value, what does it put in your pocket?
Yeah,
your product becomes what?
Becomes more valuable, and then you can make a lot of money from it. Yeah.
Perfect. That's it. And it's so simple, very simple. And this is one of the things we do, because that's the advantage of IP. It elevates value, and you can claim it to that this is your own product. And there are lawsuits here, even within the rubric of beyond food supply chain. Look at the bag industry. Look at Louis Vuitton versus Gucci. Do you know there are lawsuits? MK Bar, I don't know if you're into those luxury products. It's not only food supply chain. They sue each other. They say, hey, wait a minute, that's my bag. You've copied my bag. MK says, no, I didn't. But MK is copying Louis Vuitton because the factory, MK, Michael Kors factory is near where Louis Vuitton factory is in Italy. Now they go beyond to even go to China. Chinese people, sometimes they carry their cell phone, they go and take photo and they copy. They copy the product, you see? So it's not, those mama puts, I'm advising them. I'm trying to push the agenda of, because some of their food, even bankers in Africa look left and right and go and buy their food. That's a trade secret. If they register it, form or whatever, that product becomes more valuable because you protect it. Do you see what I'm saying? And people will understand more that it's more valuable when you now have it all in the stores. You can then do the agribusiness side of it, whereby it's transmitted from being just an ordinary whatever to being packaged, your ingredient, because it's a secret you're not sharing. That's how it's linked to franchising. You know, the franchising, you have McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken. And Kentucky Fried Chicken was in his 60s when he discovered chicken. Kentucky Fried people, his neighbors, he was serving chicken to his neighbors. He was a colonel, whatever his name was. You know, there's Church's Chicken, Kentucky Fried Chicken, you know, and Kentucky Fried Chicken was in his 60s. He just was frying the chicken and everybody liked it. Before you know it, it's like, wait a minute, I can register this. By the time you register it, you can then become a franchise where you just sit in your house and you're making money for the rest of your life. Really, because it's now duplicated. Every McDonald's follows the same trade secret, and you can't share it with anybody except if you buy into it. You have to pay the licensor of that McDonald's. It's like a chain. It's something that you will hear more of when we have the session with you December 14. Very, very important. It's a good thing that Ozeapp is and ACDI, my company, are doing this. Very, very critical. You're not going to find a lot of people training you in what Ozeapp and ACDI do, because we are not doing, oh, do record keeping, oh, teach you simple stuff, which some of the other bodies do. This is real. This is where the real meat is on moving you to the next level, which you need.
Professor, please, some of us joined late. I think the time given was 6 p.m. I think that was Nigerian time or something, but over here it's probably it's Anne. Sorry, it's still Anne.
Oh,
it's still
okay.
Anne. So I think the time I saw was 6 p.m. So I set my alarm for 5:30 until I saw the link and I was like, okay, have this started? So I think I came when you were probably 30 minutes down your presentation. So I didn't really get what the 14th was all about. But I know you keep saying, okay, when you come on the 14th. So if you don't mind, you know, taking some of us who came in late through what the 14th is going to be all about. Thank you.
Oh, Winnie,
Yes,
do you
please.
want me to do that? Can I do it?
Yes, please. Just so we wrap up quickly because time is fast spent. So yes, please, please go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, the laundry list we have of what we'll be covering in December, right? That's what you wanted. We're looking at just going further down the lane of what is the AfCfTA, inclusivity, capacity building provisions, and how that affects every trader or every SME or every stakeholder that's interested in really capitalizing on the benefits of the AfCfTA, Africa Continental Free Trade Area, affects you, me, everybody. Me, I'm the diaspora. I'm African. I'm a US citizen. It affects Ozeapp because Ozeapp works in Africa. Ozeapp is an African company. So all of us are affected. And my company is ACDI. Questions about formalization, benefits of formalizing, issues of tariff, how would you be affected, IP issues, what are the issues that you're going to face if you want to formalize, and if you're formalized, how are you going to benefit? What does the AfCfTA say about formalization processes and also capacity building inclusivity? Why should you care about the AfCfTA beyond just customs and beyond just capacity building inclusivity? What are the other things you need to concern about? And why do you even need to care about those things? Because it's more money in your pocket, really. And being aware of it will help you not to be cheated. Because simple just crossing the border, selling your stuff, if you're not aware of what the rules of the game are for your country, 54 of the 55 African nations have signed, right? And close to 40 have ratified. I think even more than 40 the last time I checked, because it's happening so fast. The only country who's not party to it yet is Eritrea, right? And so Pan-African payment system, very, very important, because that will help you put more money in your pocket because of transaction costs that it saves you. You can now, decide Ghana cedi and Nigerian naira, rand, whatever, South Africa, that, hey, I want to pay for this product. I'm in South Africa. I want to send a product to Ghana, and or good to Ghana, or buy something from Ghana. And if I'm selling, I'm sending my rand. I just put it in, and it converts immediately. You don't have to go to the bank. Okay, what is the exchange rate? It's automatic. It's called the Pan-African Payment System. Very, very important. We will be talking about that. We'll be giving you more information. The MANSA has to do with the due diligence side of things. 419, as they say in Nigeria, you want to avoid the fraudulent people. That's the system that you're going to use to say, hey, this person, I want to sell something to somebody in North Africa, or the North African wants to sell to me. Can I go into this system to see who they are? And can I also register so that people will find me? And because I'm honest and, I have a record and you can access that payment system, the MANSA. Okay, we work with Afrexim, so I have access to this, and we will share this with you. Beyond the regional level, there's also the issue of what does the AfCfTA say about businesses that are local or regional that now want to have access to markets in the USA, in America. Can they? Yes, they can. So that's where my partner, who's an American, he's a Caucasian, but I say he's African because he really works very well with Africans. He's the partner, co-chair of Squire Patton Boggs, the law firm that's based here in DC that we partner with, and he's on my board. And Frank will be discussing the AGOA, which is the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act. Very important, came into being in 2000. Why is it linked to AfCfTA? Because AfCfTA, meaning Africa Continental Free Trade Area countries. Can you hear me? It says I'm unstable. Hello? Yes, because AfCfTA countries are also AGOA eligible. So yes, you can actually export products beyond the boundaries of Africa to foreign countries and also import under AGOA. And then the implications of that for SMEs, he'll be discussing that and more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's right.
So we'll be fleshing out more of this and discussing. It's basically, how do you save more money? How do you benefit from this treaty? It's a treaty. Countries are now party to it. Your government, my government, everybody. And it's already now, some countries, at least 7 African countries or more, are already trading in it. More than that, actually, because as we're talking, it's happening. They're moving it forward very fast. You want to be ahead of the game, is what I'm trying to tell you. You want to know what's happening because you're the focus of it. Because SMEs, as we all agree, comprise more than 80% of the workforce. More than 80 in Africa. We hosted in fact, AfCFTA Secretariat is in Ghana. And we hosted Mene, His Excellency, who's the Secretary General. We hosted him here in my company, and the Squire hosted him at the AU mission March of this year. And we discussed this question: access to markets, access to finance, and access to business, trade, legal knowledge, and issues about inclusivity and capacity building. How do we help SMEs to become more economically viable by strengthening capacity in terms of market access, finance, and business, trade, legal knowledge? Those are the 3 main ones. We also just hosted the head of Afrexim. This is all on my LinkedIn page, which I think, did you share it with them? What we could do, if you can share, please, Winnie, my LinkedIn page and Frank's LinkedIn page, so they can go in and see all the YouTubes and the things we've had. President Orama is the head of the Africa Export-Import Bank, and they're the ones who implemented the Pan-African payment system. Very important. If anything, if there's anything you want to know that thing very well, because more money is going to be in your pocket because you know that Pan-African. Because when you see, the thing is, when you don't know something, you can be spending more money you don't need to spend. That's the problem, but they're trying. We had a meeting when we met with him. He said they're reaching out to so many people, but the thing about it is, Africa is how many billion people? Before they get to everybody and they go on and some of these meetings, people bring only their relatives and their friends who are stakeholders. You're lucky Ozeapp is bringing you on board to know what's happening. Because sometimes people are, information is power, man. Especially for traders, you're trying to save money. For businesses, if you don't know, then you can be with corruption. Even customs are cheating people out there. There are women crossing borders that are paying tariffs that they should not be paying because they don't know the rules of the game. They don't know that now they're not supposed to pay tariffs. They're saying to them, oh, you're supposed to pay because this. No, you're not. First, you have to know what the rules of origin are for your country and the country in question, because that's what AfCfTA is about. It's about removing duties and tariffs so that they can facilitate trade. Also, movement of peoples, that's also going to be working in terms of services, some services. But they're moving, in fact, they're proposing that the borders should be open for every African to move wherever they want. But that's not yet in place. It's the protocol on goods. We're going to be discussing the trade in goods and services protocol and trade in, this trade in services. The trade in goods and the trade in services protocol, there are two different protocols besides the AfCfTA protocol, but we're simplifying it, to the level of SMEs. In other words, making it practical. It's not going to be like my professorial thing in class with my students, because I'm also a practitioner. I have clients, a lot of clients, SME clients, So it's a good thing that Ozeapp is doing this. Ozeapp is really, we partner together. So you're in good hands. So we hope to see you all, and please complete the form by December. And Frank will be here. We'll be discussing, I think, is it going to be 1 hour? It's 1 hour, right? He's doing it. I'm sorry?
Please. Hello, sorry.
When is it? What time will it be? 12 to 1 or 1 to 2? When is it?
We'll share the information with all of them. Yes, please.
Okay. So please, don't feel obliged and forced to complete all the questions, but the more you complete, the more we get information for you so that we will address it for you. If you have more questions than the ones we have, don't hesitate to add it to the list and give to Winnie, and we will address those questions, because it's called a street law policy style of training, where we meet you where you are. It's interactive, it's organic, it's experiential. Like, I've taken note of Gideon's question about, he wants to know places to go for possible, funding, for startups, that we can give him information on that. And then Ozeapp can help him, and we can work together to see how he can move ahead. And I've given him some tips on what is going to be required of him, in terms of collateral and stuff like that, and what I'm used to, at least with my clients here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Thank you so much, Val. Time is fast spent, so I don't want to take any more of your time. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to come to today's session. Please show Val some love with some emojis. Thank you so much, Val, for this.